Welcome to Bollywood Rewind. Today in this video, I am going to explain an Indian thriller film called Andhadhun, where a man pretending to be blind becomes a witness to a murder. Watch out for spoilers ahead. The movie starts with a farmer hunting a visually impaired rabbit in a cabbage field beside a highway. As the rabbit hides behind a milestone on the highway, the farmer spots it and takes aim with his gun. Right after that, we are introduced to a man named Akash, who is a talented but seemingly blind pianist in search of inspiration. He spends his time passionately attempting to complete a musical piece. He lives alone in a small flat with his pet cat named Rani, and the only person seemingly aware of his quiet presence is a neighboring kid who keeps testing him to see if he is truly blind. We are then introduced to a couple with a young wife and her wealthy but much older husband who used to be an actor in his early days, living in the posher quarters of the city. The young wife has ambitions to launch her career in films, and she wants her husband to use his network to help her. The next day, Akash is knocked over while crossing the road by a girl. The girl, Sophie, is awed by his piano talent and gets him a gig at her father's diner. After completing his audition at the diner, Sophie drops Akash back to his flat and promises to see him again. As soon as she leaves, Akash rushes into his apartment and it is revealed that he is able to see as he watches Sophie drive away. However, Sophie is oblivious to this and the two slowly develop a friendship. Akash continues to impress Sophie by his breezy nature and wonderful piano skills. Later at the diner, he gets noticed by the yesteryear actor who is impressed by his talents. He invites him over to his home for a private performance to celebrate his wedding anniversary. When Akash reaches the actor's flat, his wife opens the door and is extremely reluctant to let him in, but does so when she notices that her neighbor is watching them. It takes a while for the wife to believe that Akash is really blind. Once she is convinced, she allows him to play the piano for her. Akash gets comfortable to play the piano, but immediately notices a dead body lying in the hallway. However, he pretends to ignore it and calmly excuses himself and asks if he can use the washroom while maintaining his charade of blindness. As soon as he enters the washroom, he finds an unknown man hiding inside, but continues to act unaware since he is assumed to be blind. On his return to the piano, he manages to identify that the dead body is of the actor who hired him. In a flashback, it is revealed that the actor had lied to his wife about a supposed trip out of town, but had, in reality, gone to bring anniversary gifts as a surprise for her. But when he comes back home, he ends up catching her cheating with another man. The fake blind Akash, seemingly unaware of the situation, continues to play the piano as the wife and the unknown guy clean the body up silently and put it in a suitcase to be disposed. After leaving the house, Akash directly goes to the police station in an attempt to report the murder. But much to his surprise, he discovers that the same man he saw at the actor's house is an inspector in the police station. As the inspector would realize that Akash was aware of the murder the whole time, he ends up lying by accusing the boy living downstairs for killing his cat Rani to change the reason of his approaching the police. The inspector investigates him to verify his blindness, but concludes in the end after doing some testing. The actor's dead body is found out, and everyone involved is called to witness, including Akash, who has to lie to save his life. The next day, Akash arrives at the dead actor's house to collect his payment, but unexpectedly comes across the wife killing the neighbor who was suspicious about the murder. Once again, Akash is forced to continue his charade of being unaware of either of the murders. Both the inspector and the wife continue to threaten Akash, perpetually testing him to ascertain if he was really blind. Akash finally cracks when the wife manages to pour poison in his coffee in front of him in an attempt to confirm if he is really blind. Akash then insists that he doesn't want any trouble. He tells her that he faked the blindness as part of a social experiment in one of his pursuits for inspiration as an artist. However, he begins to choke, realizing that a sweet she had given him earlier was poison. Retching, he collapses and ends up passing out. Akash wakes up after a while and realizing that he cannot see, rushes to wash his eyes. He realizes that he has been blinded and demands that his sight must be restored. The wife tells him to focus on his art and that no one would believe the story of a blind man about witnessing the murder. After a discussion with the inspector, they decide that blinding Akash would not be enough as he could still reveal details about the murder. The inspector comes back to finish the job. After a tense struggle with the inspector, Akash escapes out to the road, but considering that he is blind, ends up hitting his head on a pole and faints. He later wakes up in a shady clinic, which is revealed to be a front for illicit organ harvesting, and they are planning to sell his body organs. Akash quickly realizes the situation and persuades the doctor and his 2 assistants to spare him and promises them money by blackmailing the wife and the inspector. Akash tricks the wife into going on a ride with him, and with the help of the assistants, kidnap and subdue the wife and blackmail the inspector into bringing a large sum to a specified location. At this point, several twists come about. The assistants turn greedy and tie Akash up with the wife to claim all of the money for themselves. They extort the money from the inspector, who outsmarts and shoots one of them, but on his way down, he gets trapped in an elevator by the other. The inspector, trapped in the elevator, then ends up accidentally shooting himself, leaving his fate uncertain. It is shown that the money extorted from the inspector is eventually revealed to be fake money. Meanwhile, a desperate Akash works with the wife who helps him to free himself and removes her blindfold after she persuades him to free both of them. Akash, blind but guided by the wife, attempts to escape while she frees herself and attacks him. While this fight is happening, the doctor enters the room and then helps Akash subdue the wife. They tie her in the trunk of a car and begin driving while the doctor reveals his plans to harvest her organs to a rich bidder and tells Akash that he can pay for his eye surgery. Akash is morally disturbed by the notion, but the doctor continues to drive away with him, with the wife bound in the trunk. Now the story moves to 2 years later in Europe. A traveling Sophie meets Akash, who is still apparently blind and wears dark glasses, where he tells her the rest of the story. While they drink coffee, he tells her that after the doctor had driven away with him, the wife had awakened in the trunk and started making noises. The doctor stops the car and goes to the trunk to check, where he is swiftly overpowered by her. She then takes control of the car. Akash, thinking that it is still the doctor at the wheel, continues to try to convince him to let the wife go. Hearing this, she drops Akash off and drives away, but changes her mind and turns around, intending to run him over. At this point, the rabbit from the beginning of the movie slams into her windshield, causing her to lose control and crash. The car explodes, killing the wife with it. Sophie hears the entire story and sympathizes with him. She tells Akash that he should have harvested the wife's organs and gotten his sight back. Akash, however, doesn't say a word and leaves with the help of a stick, which has a rabbit carved on its handle. Once out of sight, he uses the stick to smartly swat a can out of his path, revealing that he was able to get his eyesight back. The end.